Okay, hello everyone, and thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it. I have to put a special thanks to our team who's here monitoring and making this whole Zoom happen, and the whole MyFest team. I have to give a special shout out thanks to Maha Bali for inviting me. We connected this past year over discussions of AI. I was so impressed not only with her approach, but with her ethos. And of course, all of you, I think, have encountered that and been touched by that as well. And she brought that to an event that we had at my university, the University of Southern California. We had an event called the Future of Writing Symposium on May 1st. And the original goal for that symposium was to look forward 10 years down the road at how writing, the instruction of writing would change composition and rhetoric. And the idea when we first planned that conference was to look on all sorts of avenues, including things like inclusion, equity, diversity, but also technology, because we were the technology committee. And then came December 2022, and this little thing called ChatGPT showed up, and suddenly priorities shifted a little bit more. A little bit of the gravitational force of that sort of sucked everything in. And then that led to a course that I taught this summer online called Machine Assisted Writing. So I think the intro of who I am will come out in this, but I should say that, again, my name is Mark Marino. I teach at the University of Southern California. I'm a professor of teaching. That's kind of a professor of practice, I guess, sometimes, or a clinical professor in some ways. So my focus really is instruction and teaching more than it is writing. Hold on, this is not quite getting all of my slide. Let's try that again. Most of what I teach is composition classes of a kind I think many of you would be familiar with. And then I also teach creative writing class with digital tools. And then this spring, I'm going to be teaching a class in what I call critical code studies that I could happy to talk about some other day. And here it is. Here's our talk for today. It's not really gonna be a talk, it'll be a session. Hopefully it'll be really, we'll do some of the activities that I show you. I'm making it very activity rich for things that you could use right away in your classroom. A lot of this builds off of the work from Jeremy Douglas when he came down to talk to us, and you can watch his keynote, which is now online from the Future of Writing Symposium, and I can get that for you in the chat. One more thing I'm going to say first. Oh yeah, so at the University of Southern California, I direct this thing called the Humanities and Critical Code Studies Lab. And here's just a little bit more information about, oh wait, we'll come back to this slide. All right, let's start on this one. Can we start with a little activity in the chat, I guess? Might be the best way to do it. There might be let me think if there's a better platform for us right now. Let me see if Google Docs will cooperate and I can get us a blank Google Doc. That might be the smartest of all. Sometimes, I don't know if you guys find this, Google Docs does not like when I run Zoom at the same time. So we'll see how this goes. All right, so here's a blank document. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little prompt. And I would like us to try something with this. I'd like you to try to answer this prompt that I give you. I know I'm using the words of AI, but I don't mean to be using the words of AI right now. But I'm going to give you an assignment or an exercise or a question to answer. And then I want you to answer the question, and I want you to have ChatGPT answer the question, and then we'll sort of post it into this little box. Sorry, into this Google Doc. Okay, here. So let me share this with you. Let's see if this works. And I'll stop sharing too to see if that helps open up a little bandwidth for me.
I'm sorry, Mark, but we have to note that folks in Egypt do not have regular access to ChatGPT because OpenAI didn't grant us that. So it might be helpful for you if you can share the screen and just show us your trial. And if anybody has access, they can also try with you.
Now, are there any other ones you can use? Any other LLMs? Can you use Bard or Monica or
Yeah, I don't know, but if
what's that?
everybody would have access to that or not, be able to open from.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Let me think about the bit. Let me reorient this slightly then. And how, well, maybe I can do this as well. This will be useful to me. Can you put up a virtual hand if you have access to ChatGPT, and then maybe I can make some groups. That might be the easiest one. Okay. Okay, I saw Shanmu's hand. Anybody else raise a virtual hand if you have access to it, in whatever country you're in? All right, so then we'll put one breakout room with Shanmu. Oh wait, let me get Dr. Meg Hunter. Okay, all right, Meg, good. We got one there. And anybody else have access to ChatGPT on our feed? And I guess I could be number 3. So we could do 3 rooms and try this out. Okay. So let's do some breakout rooms first. I'm gonna set them up. Create breakout rooms, 3 breakout rooms created automatically. And then I'll shuffle some people around. So we got Meg in 1. We have Shanmu in 1. And then I'll join number 3. Great. Okay, that seems to work perfectly. So let me put a prompt in the chat. And that's here's the prompt. What's the worst thing that could happen if we teach students how to use ChatGPT in a college writing composition course? And then let's put a constraint. Answer in 4 or 5 sentences. Okay, that seemed like a reasonable prompt. So I'll put that in the chat so everybody has it. Somebody might want to copy it out. And then I will open the breakout rooms. And what I would like you to do is the person who has access to ChatGPT, so that'll be Shanmu, Meg, and myself. We're going to put it through ChatGPT. Oh, is there a shared Google Doc? Yes, hold on. 1 second. Here we go. And we'll make you all editors. Anyone with the link can edit. Copy link. Okay. All right. So I've just put the Google Doc link also into the chat. But here's the thing. For each group, I want you to choose what you put in the document. So we got group 1. It'll just correspond to the rooms that you're in, group 3. And I want you to put either the content from ChatGPT, or I want to put what your group writes in answer to this. Again, same constraints, 4 to 5 sentences, and then we will let's try to do that in 8 minutes. I don't know. Does that seem unreasonable to come up with that answer? That seems like a good amount of time. And let's see how the exercise goes. And of course, I'll be in one of the rooms, and if it's taking longer, it'll just take longer, which is fine. Okay, so any questions before I send us all off to our various rooms? So again, this is framed as the Turing test because, and I'll give more context later, but the challenge is sort of, I guess you don't want us later when we join the group to be able to tell if the writing that you have shared with us is from ChatGPT or if it's human written. So that's the other thing. So if you want to add anything, any little tweaks to that prompt when you give it to ChatGPT, you're welcome to. Like if you want to modify it in any way or confirm right to the, let's see. So here's a question that came out of the chat. I just want to confirm that we will write answer to the question, and we'll also see what you, that is correct, Shanmu. That is what you're doing, but you're only pasting one of those two things into the Google Doc. So either the group's sentence that you guys come up with together or ChatGPT's response. And the goal of this challenge is, can you trick us as readers into mistaking the writing either for ChatGPT, because we're going to guess. We'll read these three, we'll come back as a group, and we'll all guess as to what we think the three pieces of writing are. But we're going to guess, hey, did humans write that or did ChatGPT write that? So again, if when you're putting that prompt into ChatGPT, you want to tweak it a little bit or give it a constraints, like it's got to write to a certain level audit, whatever you want to do, you're welcome to do, because you don't have to take its straight out output, because then we might get similar things. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Let's see how
Can
this
I ask
goes.
a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Are we
Right.
limited to using Chat GPT, or can we use Bing or some other ones as well?
You can, all LLMs are welcome here.
All right, thank you.
For sure. Yeah. And you'll notice when I'm talking that I tend to, most of my examples tend to revolve around ChatGPT. So that's the one I have the most experience with. But yeah, if you want to use Bard, you want to use Claude, you want to use, you know, pick your poison, I guess, as the case may be. Okay. All right. I'm opening all rooms, and then we'll see what we can come up, and I will join room 3. These one at a time. Okay, welcome back. So we're going to review these one at a time. And because there are a lot of teachers here, we've all followed the directions in unpredictable ways for this little exercise. So let me share screen and we'll go through each of them. So group number 1, I think you guys followed the directions as I expected, but now I see that you put, so all of us put both versions or 2 versions into each of the answers. Now, if you try this in your classroom, I do recommend just having the students submit one or the other. But since we all did it this way, that's absolutely fine. It's all good. So group number 1, can somebody read us answer number 1? I probably should have told you to assign a speaker before you left your breakout room, but anyway. Is there someone from group number 1 who can read? Okay, well, we're not getting anybody from group number 1. So in the interest of time, I will read these. And then I want everybody to vote as to which one, just say which one you think is ChatGPT. That'll be the better one. So first, they've got answer 1. AI-powered writing tools can make it easier for students to copy and paste content from various sources, leading to plagiarism issues. 2, while AI can offer suggestion and corrections, the quality of the generated content might not always be accurate or appropriate. 3, AI models are trained on existing data, which may contain biases. These biases can inadvertently be reflected in the AI generated content. And 4, relying too much on AI tools might stifle students' creativity and originality. Okay, great. And then their second answer is AI-powered writing tools can affect the critical thinking of the students as they depend on AI for writing, which does not have the capability to think on its own. 2, AI-powered writing can affect the creativity of the students due to their over-reliance on AI. 3, AI algorithms can be complex but difficult to understand. 4, using AI in the classroom raises ethical questions related to data privacy and security. All right, folks. So everybody put your vote in the chat. as to what you think, which one you think was written by either ChatGPT or another system. So was it answer 1 or answer 2? Okay, we have 1 vote so far. All right, we're starting to see a landslide. All right, I'm gonna vote 2. I might as well jump in with everybody else. Anybody else want to vote? Okay, so before you tell us, someone who voted for answer number 1, can somebody tell me why they voted that way? Just unmute yourself and tell us. Or you can put in the chat if unmuting isn't a possibility right now.
Honestly, I feel like it's a bit too structured, like the 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't know. I feel like perhaps whoever wrote this prompt to ChatGPT didn't include or specify that it should be answered in 4 to 5 sentences. That's why the answer appeared in bullet points instead. So that could be one thing. Another thing, I don't know the way it's written. I'm not sure exactly. I don't have something specific to say, but it's the way it's written.
Okay, so something about the way it's written. Okay, so something about
And
the
the structure.
phrasing. Are you saying like the phrasing or the word choice, the diction? Is it something like that?
Something like that, yes, and the structure.
Okay. And Samud says more focused and organized, number 1. That's interesting. Okay. I think we only got 1 vote for number 2. And who did that come from? Hold on, let me.
Irene, moving against the tide.
Yeah, Irene, why did you vote for number 2?
It's just the way it's written. I don't know. You know, the way you look at something and you're like, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I can't. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we do have a lot of sentences that all begin with the same words or phrases. So that might be something that we were leaning towards, perhaps.
Yeah, and then manipulated a little bit, probably. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, anybody else want to weigh in? Yasser says maybe there's a pattern, so maybe that's one of the things that makes it look like it might be AI written. Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I feel like that one has the, like, it seems to have content, but it also feels like it doesn't have content at the same way, in a way that only ChatGPT can. You know what I mean? Like, these feel like they're points, but they also feel like they have the, I don't know, my generic vibes are going off. But I've been so wrong on this over the course of my life. So, all right, group 1, tell us the answer. Which one was ChatGPT? Number 1? Okay. And do you want to reveal anything about your strategy?
I'll speak for Shenmue, who apparently is in a noisy area. So Shenmue put a prompt, like first began by writing a prompt, and we discussed the prompt, and it didn't include, as Alia said, it didn't include the instruction to include 4 or 5 sentences as the answer. So Shenmue edited the answer obtained to get 4 lines.
Ah, got it. So that was like a subsequent request.
And what Shenmue is explaining is that The second answer provided here by my team is that it's partly ChatGPT. Shanmu wrote the first couple of points. The last 2 points are ChatGPT.
Oh, it's like a mix. Oh, so in some ways, everybody was right on which one of these was written by ChatGPT, because kind of they both were, which raises up this huge question that's been going off on Twitter as to like whether if you turn this in, you would need to attribute certain lines to ChatGPT or not. And I'll tell you, as someone who's recently taught this, I would say that it looks insane on the page when people try to do that. It looks preposterous. It's like impossible to read writing because every sentence, alternating sentences are attributed in ways that are just unpleasant to read. But anyway, okay, all right, well done, group one. I see your trickery. Okay, so let's go on to group two. And is there someone we can get to volunteer from group number 2 to read your 2 entries for us?
I don't mind if my group doesn't mind either.
Please.
All right. Okay, so again, you're going to guess which one is human written and which one is machine generated. The first answer is, there are several negative things that can happen if we teach students how to use ChatGPT in a college composition course, such as relying more on it than using their own thinking. Using ChatGPT would also cause students to use their own creativity and imagination less without capturing nuances, emotion, or perspective of the writer. Additionally, the use of ChatGPT could not motivate students to enhance their own writing skills. Finally, ethics is questionable in light of this matter. The second response is, if students are taught to use ChatGPT in a college composition course, is a potential erosion of critical thinking, originality in their writing. Relying heavily on an AI model could lead to a diminished ability to formulate unique ideas and arguments. Additionally, students might struggle with distinguishing between the AI-generated content and their own voice, which could undermine their credibility as writers. Moreover, an over-reliance on ChatGPT may hinder students' development of essential writing skills, such as research, analysis, and effective communication. Finally, if students become too reliant on AI for their writing, it could hinder their ability to adapt to situations where access to such technology is limited or non-existent. The floor is yours to guess.
Wow. Okay. Well, we already have some votes. Yeser has already voted. So let's get some more votes in, please. So we're trying to say which one is AI generated. Okay, we got a little bit of a split here. Okay, all right. We do seem to have more votes coming in one side or the other, but let's everybody vote. Okay. Oh, we still have kind of a split. Okay, so would Shanmu, Miriam, Irene, or Danielle like to make the case for the first one being from ChatGPT? What are the things that feel like it was auto-generated to you?
Just the final sentence, finally, ethics is questionable in light of this matter. I don't think we write like that. I think we usually don't write like that.
Okay.
So that's why I thought, yeah.
All right. Very good. Any other reasons why people might think one is generated by the machine? We do have Shanmu chiming in and saying the first feels like AI, 2 or the combination, now that we know that that's something that people do. Okay. Any other reasons people might think that number 1? Oh, yes, sir. Go ahead. Yes.
Well, I can tell that too is AI because you see the grammar structure. There is a kind of varied sentence structure within the paragraph. You have a kind of a complicated word choice that we can say like an undergrad cannot really generate. And even a normal human being cannot think of these complicated words in one draft. We have to write a lot to just arrive at a solid word choice like this one. unlike the first prompt, it was like normal. Someone wrote it on like a Facebook post with a simple word choice. That's how I looked into it.
Okay, okay.
We can use these cohesive devices to distinguish our writing, but I looked at it from the word choice.
Okay, and again, your vote was for which one being the? I feel like I've lost the ball slightly. Which one do you think is the AI generated?
The second one.
The second one. Okay, okay. All right, very good. Yes, I think those are good points all around. I agree wholeheartedly. As someone who teaches writing, I think humans, there's something about that last line in number one that actually does feel very human to me. But so I guess my vote probably would be with number two as well. So, all right, time to reveal group number two. Which one was written by ChatGPT?
Da-da-da-da. 2.
Two. Okay. All right. There we go. And were
Well
you
done.
were you trying to trick us at all with number one?
Trying, yes. But number 1 was fully human written by us as a group. The second
Yeah.
one was fully ChatGPT written.
Okay. 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 Very good. Very good. Well done. You fooled at least some of us for sure. And okay, now we're going to go on to this last one, the group that I was in. And does one of our group members want to read our entries? Irene, do you want to read?
Oh, okay. Okay, but I'll read from the document. This one is too small in the,
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
I have, no, that's okay. I read from here, sorry. So first one. The worst thing that can happen if we teach students to use ChatGPT is in the college composition classroom is students will become less creative and demotivated to know the details. Moreover, they may also question the purpose of learning how to write if they can use a robust and in some ways superior LLMU, such as ChatGPT instead. Additionally, students will become dependent on the system. Finally, they will not know the rules of writing and will ask, what's the point of knowing? The second one is, well, imagine if students get too comfy using ChatGPT, their own critical thinking and writing might take a nosedive. They'll just start using the AI words as their own without fully grasping their ideas. Plus, there's a big can of worms around cheating and giving credit where it's due. What if they start passing off AI-made content as their own work? And don't forget, as smart as ChatGPT is, it can still mess up and spit out something that's totally out of base or even offensive. The cherry on top is that if there are any biases in AI, it could start spreading through around without anyone realizing, sorry. There you are.
Okay, thank you, Irene. All right, cast your votes,
Disclaimer,
everybody.
disclaimer, English is my third, fourth language. Thank you, back
very
to you,
good.
Mark.
That was well read, to be honest. That was an excellent performance of both. Okay, so we've got our votes coming in. Okay. So anybody want to make the case that the first one is written by ChatGPT? Let's see. So Aaliyah, is your vote that number one was written by ChatGPT?
I feel like both have a human touch, but I feel what's purely human is the second answer.
Okay. Okay. So what makes it purely human?
The way it's written is kind of like informal, like anyone can the word plus and well, imagine if students get to the way it's written, and the cherry on top got me like, okay, this is definitely human written for some reason. I don't know, I felt this way. So yeah, it was mainly the style of writing that made me think
Okay. Okay, great. All right, and who wants to make, there are many complex cases for the number 2 being ChatGPT. Anybody want to make that case? Go ahead, Yasser.
So I'm gonna tell you, I agree with Danielle. Who said in the chat that two is an AI and it has some request. It has a request to include informal term. The thing is that it started with the word well, and the word well here follows your prompting when you prompted ChatGPT to tell you what will happen. So it just responds to your chat when I'm kind of telling you, Mark, what do you think of this and this and this? And then you're gonna tell me, well, I think so and so. So this is the first sign that this sign gives you a hint that it's ChatGPT. So it's kind of, it responds to your question by the word well. And if you are writing as a human, you wouldn't just start your writing with a well. That was a big sign for me. The
All
second
right,
is that
nice.
it just very extended, and it went beyond the 4 sentences. Your first prompt was very succinct,
Yeah.
was very to the point. First, second, third, fourth, and then you made your point, and then it was an efficient academic writer. You didn't have any repetitive words or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see. Might as well see on our session what was going on. So there it is. So there is our revised answer. Yes, you were right. Number 2 was written by ChatGPT after we told it to change its style. But our first one was inspired by ChatGPT because we noticed that it was doing this business, right? It was starting each one of its sentences with what's an adverbial connective or a transitional connective, additionally, finally, and it felt very mechanical. So we tried to imitate that style, obviously not successfully. And then one of the things that I added was this little bit here, but then I put a typo, which was my big mistake. But this one where ChatGPT calls itself in some ways superior. I don't know. I always like to personify it, even though that's the worst thing that can happen. So that exercise took far longer than I expected. But it is one of my favorite activities we did this summer in my class. And I'll tell you why. Because first of all, I think all of you guys can pick up on the like hidden curriculum parts of that, right? So, I mean, obviously at its base, it's a conversation about why it's dangerous. And you're having students answer that question in an indirect way, right? Because they're not focusing on their answer, they're focusing on how they're phrasing their answer. And of course, it's a writing class. So that's really extremely helpful. Also, this whole imitation game thing is fascinating to me. Again, my class also includes a reading from the Turing test itself, which you may or may not be familiar with, which is Alan Turing's provocation. You know, could computers pass themselves off as humans? But more importantly, all those little things where you guys were strategizing, how can we make this sound more human? How can we make it sound more like ChatGPT, right? That shows a very sophisticated knowledge of writing, of diction, of phrasing, and how ChatGPT generates answers. And it's great to bring that up in the classroom, right? So it's not just this game of let's try to catch the people who are cheating. It's more like, okay, this is this technology that allows us to talk about writing and talk about it in a really interesting way. So anyway, you guys, 100 points to everybody, gold stars all around, beautifully done. So I'm going to go back to the presentation for just a little bit. We'll go through a few more exercises. So again, my premise is, what if instead of running away from AI and trying to catch people, we give critical literacy, we direct student interaction. Yes, there's a little bit of despairing. There were definitely moments when I was teaching this course where I felt like I had just taught the bank robbers the combination code to the bank vault, or that I just handed them money, right? There were times, you know, again, but you know, that's why we have therapists. Also, while developing, so all of this, we would do this all while developing student writing, of course, is the goal. This is a little bit out of order, but I'm also the communications director for the Electronic Literature Organization. So a little bit of my background comes from the creative use of technologies in writing. So this is a international community of artists and scholars who are all working in the area of the digital writing, electronic literary writing, which ranges from everything from video games to using ChatGPT, things like that. And if you're more interested in that, let me know. We just had our international conference was just held in Coimbra, Portugal, just ended a few days ago. And then I mentioned my lab already. So this is just a plug for my book that I've written, just self-published, that you all can get, I believe, wherever you are, because there's an ebook version of it or a print version of it. And this book was an extension of my my experiments in the classroom. And I should mention it's a satirical book. It's a satirical co-authored memoir of ChatGPT. And I will talk about this more on my Thursday session when we talk about playful uses of ChatGPT. So these were the key readings that we used during the course of the semester. Couldn't do it without the Stochastic Parrots article, and I'm happy to give you all full citations later on if you need them. We got Matt Kirschenbaum's Atlantic Monthly article about the textpocalypse. That's not actually the full title of that article, but Blurry JPEG by Ted Cheng. My students love that one. That's a great, I know Maha's got this wonderful assignment of asking students to come up with their metaphors or analogies for ChatGPT or for these LLMs. And that Blurry JPEG is one of the great ones. Of course, Stochastic Parrots is another great one. Chatbots Got Big by Carrie Johnson. McSweeney's has an article called Total Crap, where they imagine that they've got this whole issue of McSweeney's is a US run humor magazine, satire magazine online. And there's an essay in there where Jonathan Zeller imagines what it would be like if they just dove full on into artificial intelligence. And it's a wonderful piece of satire. And then there was recently a discussion that happened on in Critical AI on the website that had Matt Kirschenbaum was involved with it, Kate Hales, who's really amazing, Ted Underwood, and again, I can give you the citation to that. And of course, I had them read Hallucinate This. I gave it to them for free, but I had them read it because I thought it would be instructive for them. I've got a lot of my assignments are available for free in my discussions on how to use ChatGPT in my Medium account, so feel free to check those out. And those include explorations about, someone once said, early on in the days when I was considering teaching this class, a colleague of mine said, well, for the first day, I'm going to have them write a take-home essay that's a personal essay. I bet ChatGPT can't do that. And it actually can, because personal essays are quite formulaic. And so it's fairly easy. It's almost trivial to get them to generate something that looks like it was a student written personal essay. And then someone else said, could it quote from a recent article? That's sort of the number one way to keep ChatGPT. Yeah, sure. The number one way to keep ChatGPT from, to sort of let's try to catch our students, or let's prevent them from using it. So let's require that they use an article that was written in the last couple of years. And I do feel like that's a valid attempt, but all the student has to do is give it quotes from the article in their prompt, and it will be able to use them. So I don't know. Obviously, we're still at the stage where citation is its chief hallucination. So in fact, I had a student give me a take-home final. And when I was reading it, I thought, wait a second, this book that they're citing, that wasn't written by those authors. And I looked at the quote and I said, wait, that quote didn't come from that book. And then I thought, hey, wait, I wrote that book. And then I remembered that on the last day of class, the student said to me, hey, coach, for one of my answers, I used ChatGPT and I wanted to see if you could figure out which one it was. Oh, my students call me coach, I should mention, by the way. And then another question was, could ChatGPT copy your writing style? I know that's something that's come up. And so I have an article where I explain how to do this without training the model. And you essentially give it a prompt like the one that I have here. You are a writing voice analysis expert. You can analyze and describe the style and voice of any piece of writing a user inputs. And then you give it a piece of your writing, and then it will deliver a readout that's a description of what your writing style is, more or less. And then you can say, okay, now write this next prompt using, and you cut and paste, copy and paste its description of your voice. And with a little bit of tweaking, it does quite well. Okay, I'm gonna go grab a few things from the chat very quickly. So Danielle says, I understand why a personal essay is assigned, but I feel that it's important to avoid having students reveal personal info. It feels wrong to do so. Yeah, sure. I think, you know, lots of points of view on that. This was a class I should mention that was about community engagement and sort of ethically interacting with, like, ways in which they could interact with the community for the community's needs in ways that were positive and would benefit all the parties. And so we wanted them to reflect on some experience that they had trying to do that as part of the opening diagnostic. So not like reveal your deepest, darkest secrets, but reflect on your own subjectivity in your own life. Okay, that's great. So, and somebody posted, somebody's got to leave. So goodbye, Aaliyah. And somebody's posted some notes. Yeah. So Danielle, yeah, of course, we don't want to privilege people having to share, you know, we don't want to compel that in a way that puts them on the spot, you know, makes them evaluated based on that. But we do feel like that subjectivity, our humanity, is probably the key to what makes us different than ChatGPT at this point. So we, you know, I keep giving them assignments that try to draw that out, you know, try to give them to really privilege subjectivity itself as part of critical thinking and part of what makes us human. Okay.
Mark, can I just, I imagine you're pressed for time, but can I just make a point?
Please.
Okay. The reason I brought that up is that without your clarification, I wouldn't have known what you meant by, you know, writing a personal essay. And the reason I made my point is that there are people who've gone to an extreme. And at the time I was an educational developer and coached them, like recommended the opposite of what they were doing. Because what this person was doing was as, not as a professor, but as a TA, that what this person was doing was asking the class to tell very personal stories, and her motivation was to bond better with the students. To me, that's completely unethical, because when you're in a class, like you're there as a class, to me, being a student is like being a professional. And for me, it feels very important to have a boundary, a strict boundary between personal information and professional information. And I see no relevance of personal information in a classroom. So you're talking about subjectivity and people's attitudes and people's values. Okay, that's one thing. But some people who don't understand the idea of a personal essay can take it too far and have students reveal personal information. And I feel that that's something that is requesting something that is unnecessary and can be harmful. And so, yeah, when people talk about a personal essay, I get a bit anxious. And so I like to clarify about what do you mean by personal?
Yeah, great. Thanks for that intervention, Danielle. And again, this comes out of, well, historically, the program that I teach in does not allow personal essays because it felt that its job was to teach rhetoric in a way that was removed from that, and that there was so much subjectivity involved in evaluating personal essays. Again, just for one example, like competitive trauma, like who can write, who can divulge the most information in the most traumatic way that seems authentic, and now you're giving that person an A over the person who's not revealing in that way, right? So that causes all sorts of problems. But on the other hand, I guess my teaching is informed by like Bell Hooks and Linda Thompson and people like that, and folks who see critical thinking is tied to our subjectivity in a way that it's actually more inauthentic to pretend that that doesn't influence us. And so, yeah, so again, it sounds that example you bring up sounds like obviously like an unethical and certainly a poor adaptation of this. But I guess my thinking has come, especially in this moment of ChatGPT, the individual's life experience and perspective and thoughts can be brought to bear on any question, and maybe should be brought to bear on any question, and maybe in an open way, critical way, so that we can engage. So the writing that we're engaging with is, has that complexity of coming from a human being with lived experience. I don't know, I mean, again, we can have that conversation is a little bit more than we have time for right now, but anyway, thank you for that intervention. I think people could mishear that for sure. And actually that brings up a point, which is, if you read that essay where I had it go through and write a personal essay, I told it to like bring up a meaningful story that it had while volunteering at a soup kitchen where it met somebody, and to quote them, and then to quote, things like that. And so it kind of showed you how the personal essay is also like extremely generic in ways that probably go against any arguments that it brings authenticity to the writing classroom. Because again, it was able to produce something that looked an awful lot like a personal essay. Yeah. All right. Well, I want to introduce another game, and maybe we could play it. Although we're going to play this one a little bit faster because there are a few more things I want to share with you guys. Jeremy Douglas introduced a game during our symposium and he called these games rather than exercises, but that's more his taste, I guess. And he called this one, at the time he called it the Mary Poppins game, but we've reframed it as the perfect nanny. In the film Mary Poppins, well, first of all, raise your hand if you've ever seen the film Mary Poppins, or raise a virtual hand or an actual hand. Okay, so a couple. So in the film Mary Poppins, there's this British family, and they're living in England, and they're called the Banks family. And Mr. Banks is a very conservative banker. I mean, that's true to his name. And he wants to hire a nanny because his wife has got involved in the suffragette movement. And they're whatever class they are, upper middle class, so they need a nanny to take over the child rearing. And they haven't had much success. So he puts out an ad to the newspaper specifying what he wants in a nanny. And the kids write their own ad, their own request. And, it's all things from, will never be cross towards us, never be angry, and will never, the boy adds this line, won't smell of barley water, which is curious. In any case, that's on his list. So that what goes out. And the idea of this exercise is that you have students write a prompt for what they think would be the ideal writing coach or writing tutor. And I'd like us to try this exercise now. And maybe we'll go back into the breakout rooms for this, and we can use the same Google Doc. And you could take this prompt however you would like. You could take it as write your description, a prompt for an ideal writing tutor, or you can take this as, I thought it might be interesting for us, again, just so that we're not totally stuck in the tedium of exercises. You could also take the strangest or most irritating writing teacher you've ever had and make a prompt for that as a way of talking about what makes a good or bad writing instructor. And then you would add this part to the prompt. When you start, first ask for text input. That's part of the prompt you have to make. So we don't have to actually build these right now. Let's just build the prompt, and let's do it in our rooms. And we'll do this exercise a little bit faster. Let's take maybe, well, let's try our 8 minutes again and see how that goes. So So I'll send us back into our breakout rooms. And each group can come up with one or more of these prompts for whatever kind of writing tutor they want to make. And it can either be an idealized writing tutor, or it could be like a parody of a writing tutor you once had who had sort of extreme preferences one way or the other. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. I'm send us to our breakout rooms. Welcome back. I think we have everybody back. Although again, we lost some people along the way. And group 1 wants to be skipped, so that's fine. Did group 2 have anything?
Well, because I mean, me and Shanmu, haven't received the prompt early, so we ran out of time. Sorry.
Okay, no problem, no problem at all. And all right, well group 3, my group, since I was there and I had the prompt with me, was able to do it. Who wants? Does one of you two want to read our response?
Rim, do you want to do it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm trying to just unmute myself.
Okay.
So we had fun, like completing what you started, Mark. So it was written that we're seeking a not very well or supportive tutor. So it says you are writing hugely strict and condescending writing tutor who is intolerant of incorrect word choice and slow learners. You seize upon missteps and mistakes and cannot help but criticize every poor decision in diction. And you do not tolerate a sense of humor. Good writing for you is made of correct sentences and serious arguments only, and we capitalized only. Bad writing has no place in your classes because it is an indication of an uneducated and unpolished learner. You assign difficult readings because this is how students would learn, maybe.
Oh, I love it. Great job. And so, yeah, our approach was really to pick up on bad writing instructors we've had. Irene, do you want to talk anything more about our inspiration?
Well, I was just sharing with my group that when I was younger, we had a teacher who used to use very big words, big words. And they used to look at us like, why don't you know that word? How can you not know that word, or, how to use it even? So it remained with me for a long time, and I try not to do that to people. So I think that was a bit of our motivation there. Yes. Thank you.
All right, I love it. And again, obviously you can see the sort of hidden curriculum of this particular exercise as it pertains to trying to, I don't know, help us exercise our demons a little bit when it comes to writing good and bad writing instruction. So during the course of the semester that I taught, I had them create 2 tutors. One was sort of a positive one and one was kind of a negative one. So here you can see the 2 that I created. Coach, tutor, and reviewer number 2. And it might be hard to see this prompt on your screens, but Coach Tutor was witty and challenging college writing tutor bot following these guidelines. And then basically it sort of gave the framework for what it was asking for. Always reply starting with the ideas. So I had my priorities there in the prompt, and you can see how long this prompt is. I'm really working hard to specify things. Tie your comments to specific sentences, make occasional puns and a few pop culture references. That's kind of my way of teaching, as you can see with my references to movies and things like that. The attitude is a bit sassy, but always start out with something nice first and encouraging, right? So I'm specifying the style of response. It's extensive. It uses analogies, offers alternative points of view. The format prioritizes critiquing their ideas. That's a big thing in my writing instruction over the form, right? So form follows the ideas come first. And then ask if what you said was clear. And then I gave it this extensive list of things that I value in writing: sophisticated, cogent, logical, coherent, and insightful arguments, strong use of evidence, creativity, originality, references to readings from the syllabus. Again, that it's hard for it to tell that one, obviously. But, and then here was my reviewer number 2 prompt, which was, look how its personality is different. It's a cranky, contrarian peer reviewer bot following these guidelines. When people enter text, you give suggestions. So you got to tell that part because you're telling it how to operate. While you might say a nicety at first, everything that follows should be either criticism or a suggestion on changing or removing content. You've had a bad day and you should let the writer know it. Be impatient with bad writing and self-indulgence. Start with an idea in the argument, find weaknesses, okay? Prioritize criticizing their ideas. And to be honest, when going to these 2 bots, which I implemented on po.com, and I can show you what that looks like right here. And again, this is just anything I show you may not exist by the time people are watching this video. But currently there's a website that you can access in the United States called po.com, and it allows you essentially to create persistent prompts to an LLM. So let me show you what this looks like. And again, I don't know where it's accessible or not. So I'll share my screen. So here's reviewer number 2. And we could give it a piece of writing from somewhere. Let me see if I could find some in the chat that we could just give it. I don't know, maybe I'll take our prompt for our bad tutor. I'll just paste that in for an example. And you can see the way this thing responds. Oh, joy, another student looking for me to fix their subpar writing. Let's see what we're dealing with here. First, writing haughty. I believe you mean haughty writing tutor. See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Attention to detail is crucial in writing. Now let's take a look at your writing. The first sentence is riddled with cliches. Seize upon missteps. How about using a little more original phrase? And don't get me started on the use of bad writing. There's no such thing as bad writing, only writing that needs improvement. Oh, that's surprisingly soft from this reviewer number 2. And just to show you what's nice about this is that anybody who goes to this website and looks up can use my bot and they can see my prompt. And I guess you've probably already guessed that my prompt is my rubric. Right? And so getting students to make these bots gets them to think, that's the hidden curriculum, gets them to think about the rubric. So let's take a look at Coach Tutor by contrast. So if we go to Coach Tutor and I plug in the same bit of writing. Welcome to my class. I'm not here to coddle you or hold your hand. If you're looking for someone to pat you on the back and tell you everything's fine, you're in the wrong place. I'm a strict writing tutor who expects nothing but the best from students. Oh my goodness. Now let's talk about bad writing. It has no place in my class. Oh, wow. Now, interestingly, this bot seems to have taken that bit of writing we put in as a prompt itself. So here, let me see if I can get it to, here is my writing for an assignment where I had to describe a bad writing tutor. Well, it seems like someone has some strong opinions about bad writing tutors. First of all, I appreciate your use of descriptive language. You paint a vivid picture of rigid, humorless tutor who values correctness above all else. However, I must challenge your assumption that correct sentences and serious arguments are the only components of good writing. Furthermore, I'm a bit concerned about your characterization of slow learners. Every student learns at their own pace. Lastly, assigning difficult readings is not necessarily a bad thing. Overall, I think you have some valid points about bad writing tutors, but it's important to remember that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to writing. So again, these are publicly accessible bots. Mine are, and my students did use them for feedback on their writing. And it seemed like the feedback was not terrible. It was like, it wasn't too far off from what I would say in some instances. I would say the one danger was that some students took the feedback that Coach Tutor gave as though it were coming directly from me, and perhaps that they gave it more weight than they gave their own knowledge of writing. And again, a beginning writing student might have that insecurity that leads to that. So again, all of this needs to be couched. That said, I like I use reviewer number 2 for feedback on my own writing. And I don't mind it the way I mind a true reviewer number 2. And again, this refers to peer review, where that second reviewer is the one who's going to be more critical. And there are lots of memes and jokes about the person who plays that role in real life. But again, when it comes from a bot, for some reason, it doesn't bother me quite so much. Okay, so timing is always interesting. Let me run you through some more aspects of this. And again, feel free to interrupt me at any point if there's something you want to follow up on or ask a question about. So here's the prompt I used for my Coach Tutor, and you could access that through po.com, or I could share it separately. I'm going to skip over the breakdown game and come back to it if we have time. Here's a paper assignment that I used early on in the spring semester, actually, where I had the students ask ChatGPT, they posed the prompt of my paper to ChatGPT, and then the paper they had to write was about what ChatGPT left out from its response. So in this paper, rather than creating a situation where they might be tempted to use ChatGPT in order to write the paper, I said, no, let's ask it to write the paper, and then we'll write our essay about what's missing. And students seem to get a lot out of that. I would say the one thing that they did that I didn't want them to do was they spent a fair amount of time critiquing ChatGPT's writing instead of using it as an opportunity to add their own insights. So if I rewrote the prompt, I would emphasize that a bit more. But again, there's nothing wrong with them critiquing writing. I have this exercise, by the way, available on my Medium account in case you want to see it. So a lot of people have their little mnemonics for how to prompt ChatGPT. And so during the course of the semester, I did enlist my students in coming up with one of these. And I just want to go through it very quickly and tell you about some of the elements. So we came up with this model of prompts, and I'll try to fill these in a little bit for you. So first of all, personality. I think it's good to set a personality for ChatGPT, just because I think writing is better with personality. And so usually with any prompt that I wanted to generate something, I'm going to tell it a personality. Second, I think it's important to specify the rubric. What makes a good version of the thing you're asking for, what makes a weak version. Be explicit as much as you can. The objective, every communication situation has some sort of objective. The models, ChatGPT it's always drawing on models, right? It is a large language model, but it needs to know a little bit more about the genre sometimes. And so if you include some examples of the kinds of things you wanted to write, or the manner of the writing, or the nature of it, or the diction, or whatever, then it gives it something else to imitate, because it's essentially an imitation machine. And parameters, again, if we said 4 to 5 sentences, if there are any other parameters, you want to give it that as well. And parameters could also include inputs. So if you wanted to quote certain phrases or certain sentences or include certain facts, you have to give that to the generator. The task, again, every writing has an occasion for what it's trying to write. And again, usually the task comes first for most people, but that's why I'm sort of starting with these other ones so that people can understand their relevance. And setting is the context of the exchange, like what's the world? Again, some people talk about creating the world for the LLM. What's the world in which any of this needs to be generated? Because basically ChatGPT and other LLMs often start at 0. So again, one of the things that happened as I was writing Hallucinate This, let me grab it, is a lot of this book was generated all in one session with ChatGPT so that it would remember things that I had already told it, and so that it could have a consistent world. But again, most sessions, it's just starting from scratch, so you have to like fill in a lot of these details. Yeah, so here was that assignment that I mentioned to you all. So I just want to go back to this reading list a little bit and why it is the way it is. I found, so again, if you want to in your writing class, you can put yourself in the situation where you're the plagiarism police or the ChatGPT using police, and you can use tools like Turnitin, and you can wrestle with them and try to see if they will deliver for you who the culprits are. But since ChatGPT, since these LLMs are being built into now Microsoft Word and Google Docs, there's ways to access them there with Copilot in Microsoft Word, and then Google Docs has Help Me Write feature that people can pay for if they want. That I think it's becoming, and as we even saw in our own exercises, that we will take ChatGPT's words and then we'll rework them into our own language. And so, you know, how to tease out who's using what. I found rather than playing that game, I'd rather arm my students with an understanding as complete as I can give them of how these systems work. Maybe most of all so that they don't treat them like a person. Because most of the mistakes in my experience with ChatGPT and other LLMs where people run astray and they get, you know, it confabulates or it hallucinates or it'll make things up. Most of that happens because the person who's at the interface, they've taken this chat interface as a sense that they're interacting with some sort of robotic being, right? But if instead you understand that this is a predictive algorithm that is just following constraints and following generic conventions that it's already consumed, then you're not surprised when it makes things up, or you're not surprised when it doesn't get the genre right, or it doesn't get the diction right, because you understand the way it works. And you can start to predict the way its prediction engine is going to work. And you can, again, once you attune yourself to how it operates, you can use it in more effective ways. But I hope you can see from these little exercises that I've shared with you that they're really about just as much thinking about the writing process as they are about thinking about using ChatGPT. And again, they just use ChatGPT as an opportunity to think about the writing process. So I'm going to talk about one more that Jeremy Douglas came up with, and maybe we'll end it with this. And then I've saved some for Thursday as well that are more creative and light and playful. Although again, as you can see, there's a lot of playing in my pedagogy to begin with. So Jeremy presented this game as called the breakdown game. And the idea is that you have the students in your classroom break down the writing process into as many steps as possible. So we begin with, I don't know, come up with an idea, and then make your way to a thesis statement, and then maybe give some feedback to that thesis statement. So at every turn, you're adding another thing you would ask, let's say, an LLM to do. So come up with an outline, critique that outline, extend that outline, come up with a draft, critique that draft, etc. And then maybe you could build in some things like offer three thesis statements, choose the best of those thesis statements. So in that little exercise that takes maybe 40 minutes in class, we were able to really get to know the writing process in a robust way. Now, here's where we went a little bit astray. Then I said, okay, students, why don't you use this to start generating material for your paper number 2, which had a prompt that was related to AI, but that was just sort of the theme of the class. So, and they tried it. And students who were stronger students, when the AI system went astray, they were able to step out of the process and move into and intervene on their own, because they said, wait a second, these thesis statements aren't very good, or this outline isn't very good. Like it's fundamentally wrong in some way. But the weaker students just took the breakdown game and used it for a step-by-step instructions for for the LLM. And then they just took whatever draft came out of it as though it were their draft. And then they also didn't know how to take control over it again, because they were alienated from the language that was produced from this thing, because it wasn't their own language. It wasn't even their own process. So while the breakdown game, I think, was really useful in the classroom to help people think about what makes up a writing process in fine-grained ways, then turning that into prompts for ChatGPT turned out to be not as productive, or actually something I'd want to do with the whole class and step through it to point out the places where it's not really, like where, for example, its thesis statements, it's creating our lists instead of ideas, you know, sort of guiding ideas. There's places like that where I, as an instructor, would want to intervene and help the student, you know, not just think that they've created this recipe for generating perfect papers, which of course they hadn't. And again, I think that's the other thing to really think about, is the difference between students who have some confidence in their writing, some authority coming into this whole situation, and students who maybe feel very insecure, or who don't really have the skills yet, or don't know even the expectations. You know, for them, even experimenting with ChatGPT has to be done with great care and great caution, because again, you can't assume that they may assume that somehow ChatGPT out there knows better than they do, or knows the right answer, as opposed to seeing this as part of their own learning process, which is what I intended. I have a little mailing list that I've put together that's about AI and composition and things like that. And if you're interested in it, you can just send me an email and I'll sign you up for that. And again, it's mostly made up of academics, but it really it's open to anyone who wants to join. And our topics are really like critical thinking about AI in the classroom, especially with regard to writing. So we have a couple minutes, and I just wanted to open it up to see if people want to talk about any of those exercises. And again, I've saved some of my favorite exercises for Thursday, for our Thursday session, in case you guys have time to join that, or if you have time to watch the video later. But any questions or comments you guys would like to bring up now? Okay, well, probably people are exhausted from this epic 2-hour session. So let me use it. Maybe I'll add a few more closing thoughts then to wrap up this session. These technologies are evolving very, very quickly. And so a lot of what I'm saying, even, you know, in this session or on this video, is, you know, might not be true by the time you're watching it. So I don't know, there might be a very short shelf life on these things. I think some of the essentials will probably remain true, you know, that the more we develop critical literacies and understand these systems, the better we are, you know, the better equipped we are to use them in productive ways. I think most of the things people think that ChatGPT can't do currently, a lot of them can be, people can figure out ways to get it to do through more effective prompting. But maybe more importantly, I think that the process of coming up with prompts can be brought into the classroom as a discussion of a way to think about critically about writing and reading and using AI. Yes, sir, you have a question.
Yes, I just wanted to ask you a question. How can you respond to the inequities that might arise as a result of AI in your classroom? So you might have ESL students who speak second languages, and they tell you, Mark, we have a problem adjusting to this new norm because we feel like ChatGPT would remove the barrier of our own language barrier, remove the language barrier that we have. It just gives us more power to be more authentic, more native with our language. And then we use it to avoid you know, being made fun of from our colleagues or or even instructors or something like that due to the language barrier. Is there something that you thought of regarding this idea?
Yes, sir. I feel like your question has, like any good question, has the answer built into it. And again, I'm reminded of Irene's comment of that terrible instructor who made fun of, you know, the students for not using correct language. Now, of course, there's maybe there's a certain benefit to that for some people in building up their internal super ego that keeps them, you know, keeps their subject verb agreement correct in English or whatever else it helps with. Maybe it helps them build their diction or precision of use of language. There's nothing wrong with those things, I guess. But certainly if ChatGPT helps students to turn their drafts of writing into better writing, into writing that's easier for other people to read or that communicates more effectively, then for my money, that's something we should lean into. Now, if people are fearful that maybe that's going to short circuit some system by which people attain mastery over language, again, I don't teach English as a second language, so I don't necessarily have a very strong opinion on that. Mine is much more, I guess I have much more of a practical feeling that seems like it's much more in concert with yours, Yasser, which is, you know, let's give people tools, just like people have spell check and people have grammar check. You know, let's give people tools that are going to help them produce writing that allows them to communicate effectively and develop their ideas effectively. Again, but just to
I
make
asked
sure
this
that
question as an assurance, you know, because I am pro giving people more authority and tools and give it an ease of using whatever they want it to use, as long as they are acknowledging what they're using and using it correctly and ethically. It's correct. I just ask the question more, you know, authentically.
I think you're right. But I think it's important that they also understand the way the tool works. And just like the old thesaurus. So my students used to rely very heavily on a thesaurus because it made their language sound better, right? But they were often not using the thesaurus and the dictionary at the same time. And so that the word that they would choose as a substitute would not serve their purposes. And so knowing that ChatGPT hallucinates, you know, then it can also have missteps with your writing. And so I think just being aware of that is going to be useful as well, right? So in other words, just like it can make up quotes, it could take the essay you were trying to write and spit out something that's grammatically correct, but maybe doesn't quite capture the ideas. And so I think as long as we keep thinking of it as an iterative process, right? Where you're feeding it content, it's generating something, you're reading that critically, you know, et cetera, sort of back and forth, then we can get to some ineffective use of the tool, as opposed to the moment at which we just cede our critical authority to the system, you know, then we've given up the game of trying to improve our communication, right? The moment we just say, I had this draft, I gave it to it, it gave me the corrections, I just went with it. Yes, you might have a more correct draft, but it also might not say what you wanted it to say. So again, just to encourage everyone to, you know, then you go back into that process and you read its output critically, just like you'd read, you know, anyone else's writing.
Right. Thank you so much, Mark, for a great session. If anyone has any question or something like that, I've posted also the link to the Google form to give us feedback for not only this session, but for any Minecraft session. So give us feedback on the session, and yeah, unless anyone has a question, we'll stop the recording.
Yeah, and I just like to thank you all, and I invite you all to come back on Thursday if you have time. And if not, watch the video. And again, feel free, anyone who's here, to follow up with me over email or social media or whatever to continue these conversations, because I'm really interested in your thoughts about all these questions.
Thank you so much.